a very good day to Dr. Ali and my fellow friends. So today we're going to be presenting about the insights of Mintil as endangered language in Malaysia. My name is Wawama Ashraf, and allow me to introduce my groupmates. We have Mashita, Nur Syaira Aznida, and Nur Shahira. Next slide. Okay, for the theme, we have chosen endangered language. Why do we choose this? Because endangered language is very crucial to be studied. This is because there are few of endangered language that we have here in Malaysia, and one of it is Mintil language, which is located in our country itself. Next, and we proceed to the next presenter, Mashita.
Okay, thank you, Mama Ashraf. My name is Mashita binti Ghazali. Very good day to Dr. Ali and also my fellow friends. Okay, I'm going to present and explain a bit about the background of our study. Okay, based on the article that we have found, the Mintil language is one of the Malaysia's most endangered languages. So it's basically the language that linguistically separate number of the Merak Batik branch of the Northern Aslian language family. But it is still spoken by about 400 individuals who identify themselves as Batik Maya. So this Mintil language, previously estimated language endangerment status of Mariban, which means it does not exist, is based on the insufficient evidence. So we believe that these Mintil languages status is stable since it is being spoken by virtually by all adults, and the tree is established village and is being passed down to their children in that speech of group. Nonetheless, due to the limited number of speakers and the absence of formal recognition, the language cannot be deemed as safe. So these Mintil speakers and their language focus on references based on their ethno-linguistic identity, geographical distribution, and their linguistic affiliation. So this field survey, which took place between August 2012 and April 2019, comprised visits to all localities where Mintil was said to be spoken. So we investigated the anthropological and linguistic literature of Mintil speakers and their language. Okay, can move on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashita. My name is Nur Syaira Aznida, and today I'm going to present about the problem statement for this article. So, for many years, languages has been an indication for someone's identity. However, indigenous languages are in the brink of cease to exist. So, Aslian languages that are spoken by Orang Asli have become one of the endangered languages in the world. So, in this article, the author focuses on one of the Aslian languages, which is Mintil. So despite the fact that there are still people who speak the Mintil language and can be considered stable, the author realizes that the number is still too small, and the lack of official recognition means that the language is still very much in danger. So in this paper, the author strives to address the ambiguity over the status of the endangered language Mintil. Proceed to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you, Syaira. So we move on to this objective of our study. We have found out that which are three objectives. The first one is we able to identify the insights of a Mintil language as a endangered language in Sabah, Malaysia. And the second one is we be able to understand how endangered language happening in terms of communication between the languages assessment against the EGIDS standard. And lastly, we able to evaluate the data based on examination of the Mintil language literature and a survey of localities where Mintil language is still spoken in their village. Yeah. Can proceed to the next presenter.
Okay, so I'm going to present about the literature review. So based on the literature review, there are several elements that are to be assessed, which includes geographical distribution, linguistic affiliation, and ethno-linguistic identity of the ASEAN people. So the first report of the Tanum people comes from the colonial explorer named Grant Cornwell, who was carrying out a survey for the Tumpat railway line. So then he first met a man from Tanum and was described as a short, about 137 centimeter, almost black, woolly hair, and a very muscular man. Um, the man was seen rowing a boat full of full of Malays, up the Tanum River. This is considered as a very strange occurrence because usually Tanum people, they don't come in contact with outsiders. Okay, they are quite a shy bunch. So since then, many researchers tried to come in contact with them, but the Tanum people continued to elude them. They continued to escape these anthropologists. But however, the effort continues, and researchers were able to get their hands on rough data, especially on their location and number of population. Unfortunately, the data again is not very precise, so they can't really pinpoint the exact location and the exact number of population because these people elude them. So in case of the geographic distribution of the speakers, there are two maps that shows the location of the Mintil speakers. The first map is provided by Diflof in 1975 and followed by Benjamin in 1976. So these two people is anthropologists, then which depicts that Mintil is actually an isolated language, and it's also uh, they also occupied an area covering the mid to upper reaches of the Sungai Tanum under the Mandrake of Kelantan. Proceed to the next presenter.
Okay, so thank you for the just now presenter. And now we moving on to the methodology. So the other for the research, this research have been using the qualitative method. So what is qualitative method? Qualitative method research is used to understand how the people experience the language in the village. The author used this type of research as approaches include grounded theory, ethnography, action research, phenomenological research, and narrative research. Researchers investigate a phenomenon or event by describing and interpreting participants' lived experiences. So the author has visited a few places such as Kampung Sungai Garam, Kampung Payagladi, and Kampung Bencah Kelubi. Next slide, please. Okay, so moving on to the findings part. Based on this article, the author has conducted surveys to determine the number of Mintil language speakers in Malaysia. There were groups of people which came from Batik Tanim and Batik Maya, rejected the claim they are using Mintil language because Mintil itself is referring to a river or a kampung, Kampung Mintil, which located in Kelantan. Therefore, they assume that only people in that particular place use the language. But to avoid any confusion, the author clarified those people still using the same language and only different locations makes them argue that they are using different language. Next is about geographical aspects. There are a few of places that the author went to discover about the indigenous languages. For instance, just I mentioned just now in the methodology, which is Kampung Sungai Garam, Kampung Bencaklubi, and Kampung Payagladi. The author has stated that the population of Mintil speakers has been decreasing from year after year because of intermarriage of different ethnics. For example, in Kampung Sungai Garam, there are joint of Maya's Batik ethnics because of their people marry each other and live in the same community. The main language that they use daily is Mintil. Same goes to other Maya villages such as Kampung Bencaklubi and Kampung Payagladi. Other than that, the author has stated that most of the respondents to the survey used Batik language or Mintil as their main language, and the language will be transmitted to their young children. They will be using the language when they are at home, communicate with other another Mayas villagers, and even to the outsiders. Let's say that if they want to refer to something like to the places, plants or animals. The children in the villages only use Mintil when they are communicating with their parents. But when it comes to school, they will be exposed to another language such as Malay because in public school, Mintil's language will be not be taught. Okay, next slide, please. Moving on to discussion part. Generally, this article is mainly discussed about the population of Mintil's languages speakers in Malaysia. Based on the findings of this report, there are a few villages that mostly the Mayas inhabited, such as Kampung Sungai Garam, Kampung Bencaglubi, and Kampung Payakradi. The villagers will be usually use the Mintil's language as their communication tool to communicate among each other. They even teach their children about the language so that they will keep spreading the language from a generation to another generation. Um, but due to the modernization and advancement of technology with the applications of education among the people, the language usage keep decreasing from year to year. This is because the young children will not be exposed about the Mintil language when they are in school. Geographical aspect also be main influence of the endangerment of Mintil language. This is because a lot of exploitation activities has been carried out by the government sectors in the Maya settlement or villages, just to ensure that the Aslan communities also can enjoy the same advantages as the other Malaysian citizens in their life. A lot of rock houses has also been built, which replace their traditional handmade house. Technology also has been introduced when the children go to school. By using the technological devices such as computer and internet, the children will be more exposed to other language instead of their native language. Thus, this can lead to the extinction of the particular language if they continue to use other language in their daily basis. So moving on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashraf. So we're moving on to the practical implications. Okay, the Maya regard themselves as a separate ethnic group with a well-defined area and a distinct language. So according to the data on language use and intergenerational transmission, Mintil's language endangerment status is not moribund, which means it's not expiring or dying. So based on EGIGS, which is a standard graded international disruption scale, standard some 12 of these languages, which mean one of the language is Mintil, are considered in trouble or dying due to intergenerational transmission being in the process of being broken. So indeed, if the status quo in the village is preserved, the languages will fulfill his additional condition of not just being taught as a mother tongue by children as the norm, but which we believe will continue to be so for possible future. And despite all these challenges, there have been lately been a number of initiatives that may help to preserve this Minty language from being moribund. So the government has begun to encourage the teaching of Aslian languages, in particular by publishing and providing a semi-dictionary and teaching a mother tongue class in school where the majority of the students can speak such as the language. Okay, can move on to the next presenter.
Okay, for the strengths and weaknesses, as this study was done to gather knowledge about Mintil as an endangered language in Malaysia, the author was able to draw several conclusions from the data given from the study. However, there are a few measures that the authors should do to make this study more effective and accurate. So one feature that I would like to highlight is the author's detailed explanation of their observations of the language status and geography of the speakers. This information is critical to include in the article for readers who are unfamiliar with Mintil language. By including this information, readers can gain a true understanding of the Mintil language before reading about the studies. Another feature that I would like to highlight is the author inclusion of several areas where the Mintil language is utilized. The author incorporates some of the terms used by the speakers. This element should be commented since it informs readers about where they may locate the speaker. Furthermore, readers will be able to decipher the meaning of some of the terms utilized. There are a few points though that the writers may have overlooked, despite the fact that Mintil language speakers come from various regions and backgrounds, or in other words, are legitimate to be sampled. In this study, only a limited number of them were used to be sampled. The author should have sampled a larger group of people in order for the data to be more accurate. Because of the objective of this study is to investigate the perspective of Mintil language as an endangered language in Malaysia, the author should have sampled at least 10 speakers in each area. Summary tu hilang. Tak apa dah. So for recommendation, this study emphasized on Mintil as an endangered language in Malaysia. The recommendation we will make to improve this research are as follows. The author should classify the speakers according to their field and batik. We are not sure where the interview took place or who their batik was. As a result, the author should specify the speaker's location and batik. The second one, the author should sample a larger sample of speakers in each area to ensure the data obtained is precious as possible. As previously stated, the Mintil language has relatively few speakers because it is one of Malaysia's endangered language, and some speakers may have blended with other language. That's all from me.
All right, moving on to the contribution. So this study's findings will greatly contribute to the society who are still blinded by the threat of the moribund of this endangered language. So the death of Asli languages itself, it will lead to the fall of its unique culture, identity, and its civilization. So it could greatly affect the ones left, as they had to deal with the loss of sense of belonging and also the sense of their identity, because they're the only ones left within the society. So this study will also help to foster the positivity and awareness towards the preservation of the language within the society. And the government or policymakers will benefit greatly from this study to safeguard the Asli languages, or enhancing the use of language within or out of the ASEAN community. Next slide.
All right, so before we end, allow me to make a little bit of conclusion. So based on what we have done through this article review, we can conclude that this Mintil language is a kind of language that needs to be preserved by everybody in Malaysia, because besides of other ethnics in Malaysia, we still have this Mayas ethnic in our country. So we need to have more volunteers just to create more awareness about to preserve the language, so that our next generation will be know more about that the other language exists in our country instead of Malay, Indian, and Chinese. So thank you so much for listening. That's all from us.
Thank you.